Hello, and welcome to Your Health Matters. I'm your host, Dr. Peter Hogenkamp, and today we're going to explore the second in our series of the hidden health hazards of summer. As I was talking about last time, we all love summer. And I think our love of summer starts when we're kids. For instance, I remember being in school and I would literally count the days off till summer vacation. So this love of summer is ingrained in us so early. We're in school all year, we can't wait for summer. So we love summer, we have summer vacation. Summer was the time we all went on our family trips. We used to have a place in Big Moose in the Adirondacks, and I used to look forward to going there like you can't believe. Many of us take summer vacations, road trips. One of the reasons we do these things in summer is, for one thing, we have the time. As I mentioned, we're not in school, but we also have more opportunity because the days are longer. Here as we tape this show, it's the end of June in Vermont, and it's never dark. I wake up this morning at 4:30 in the morning, it's light out. I went to bed last night at 9:30, it was still light out. So we have these long days that we can take advantage of. Normally, there's lots of sun. This year, 2025, our spring has not been characterized or hallmarked by a lot of sun. Although yesterday it was beautiful, and I so appreciate that. So we have lots of sun to enjoy this summer. The summer is filled with great stuff to do. Cookouts, golf outings, festivals, fairs. All these things are generally scheduled during the summer because we have the more opportunity to enjoy them. For instance, the Killington Music Festival, the Vermont State Fair, Art in the Park, the Addison County Field Days, the Summer Solstice Sessions in Jay Peak. All these things are just a few examples of all the different things we get to enjoy during the summer. Let's not forget about the simple pleasures of summer. For instance, taking a walk in the evening like we did last night, taking a hike in the woods, reading a book on your porch, one of the things that I love to do more than anything, sitting in the shade on a hot day, taking a nap on your hammock. These are all some of the things that we love to do, the simple pleasures that we love in the summer. Lastly, let's not forget about the fruits and vegetables that we have during the summer. So summer is a wonderful time, but we have to be careful because everyone thinks of summer as fun, carefree, but in reality, summer can be a dangerous time because of the hidden health hazards of summer. Last show we talked about sunburn and skin cancer, and I wanted to point out today that the day that we taped was a beautiful day and it hadn't been nice at all. And so after I spent a half an hour talking about how to avoid sunburn, I went out and played golf, and it had been so cloudy for a long time that I completely forgot about putting on suntan lotion, and I got a sunburn on the day that I talked about avoiding sunburn. And that's what I mean by hidden health hazards this summer. These things are they're occult, they're subtle. We don't think of them right away. We think of summer as a carefree time, but it can be dangerous. And today we're going to talk about avoiding accidents. The first thing I wanted to mention was simple traffic accidents. It turns out that July and August are by far the months in which we have the most fatal accidents. In the year 2022, the last data that we have compiled, there were 45,000 fatal car accidents in this, or motor vehicle accidents in this country. 45,000. And from the standpoint that these are all almost needless preventable deaths, I think it's worth sitting down and talking about it. With the fear of being morbid, which I don't want to be because I'm not a morbid person, but these are preventable deaths the way I look at it. 45,000. And you think about, my own family, we had a death in the family due to a traffic accident, and the amount of pain and suffering it causes for a long time. If we can prevent just one of these, I think it's worth sitting down and doing, and that's what we're doing here today. Just out of curiosity, I looked up what the breakdown of these car accidents were. Passenger vehicles were 30,000 of those 45,000. Pedestrians, 7,500 fatal pedestrian accidents. Motorcycles were 3,000, bicyclists 1,000, and then the rest added up to the sum of 45,000. When we're talking about fatal motor vehicle accidents, we're talking about driver error 95% of the time. 95% of the time. So the other causes of accidents would be environmental factors like bad weather, as well as car issues, like car malfunctions kind of thing, maybe bad brakes or something like that. Between environmental factors and car factors, it's only 5%. 95% of the time with fatal accidents, that's driver error. And we can, if we can prevent that, we could prevent 45,000 fewer deaths and all the suffering and emotional trauma that comes with it. 30% of fatal accidents have to do with speeding. 8%, I was very interested by this because I thought it was going to be much higher. But distracted drivers are only 8% of fatalities. Now, it's much higher when it comes to non-fatal accidents, and certainly distracted driving is a huge issue. But in terms of fatal accidents, it was 8%. Alcohol, 40% of fatal accidents. The leading cause of fatalities is seatbelts. Not wearing seatbelts is 45% of drivers and 50% of passengers in the front seat who are not belted. Think of how easy it is we could prevent some of these terrible deaths just by wearing a seatbelt. 30% speeding. If they're not speeding, there's no fatality. Distracted drivers, 8%, and again, alcohol, 40%. I think it goes without saying that alcohol is not something we should be imbibing when we're driving, but it continues to happen, so I think it bears repeating. Alcohol and motor vehicles just don't mix. So, why do traffic accidents peak in the summer months? Remember, now we're talking about the hidden health hazards of summer. So why is it we're talking about accidents in this series? And that's because July and August are by far the months in which most traffic fatalities occur. Why is that? Well, we were talking about the summer vacation I used to love in Big Moose when I was a kid. We had to drive there. So people are on vacation during the summer. People take road trips during the summer. I sit down during the day and talk to my patients about how busy they are in the summer. They're off here, they're off there. Maybe not necessarily on vacation. Off to visit their kids, off to a fair, off to a certain event. People are on the road in the summer. The other factor is that teens are on the road in the summer because they're not in school. So teen driving miles increase greatly in the summer. So for these three factors, I think this basically explains why we have so many accidents during the summer. Also, there's a lot of motorcycles on the road in the summer where there isn't many other times of the year, because motorcyclists obviously don't drive during the winter, only some of the times in the spring and the fall. So in the summer, you've got a lot of motorcyclists on the road as well, bicyclists. During the summer months, I bike to work. And there's a lot of other people who are biking on the road. So there's bikes on the road. And we talked about pedestrians earlier. 7.5 thousand fatal pedestrian motor vehicle accidents involving pedestrians per year. So it's a tricky time from this standpoint. But it doesn't, all of these deaths are preventable. We can prevent these accidents. And that's what I wanted to talk about how to do. The first thing is to plan your trips. If you're going on a road trip, plan it. I remember a buddy of mine and I, on a whim, when we were in college, it's a high school buddy of mine, he'd met this girl down in New Jersey at some point during the semester, and he made plans to go down and visit her. And at the last second, he talked me into going down. And we drove down to Jersey. We didn't have any idea where she lived. We had a vague idea. And so we just basically started driving south, and every road that came our way, we would make a choice. And although it was fun and we laugh about it still, I specifically remember getting into an accident because I had no idea where to turn. And I'm down in Jersey somewhere, and I'm driving in traffic, and I had to take a right or a left. And I decided to take a right, and at the last second I realized that was the wrong thing, so I drove over this curb, doing great damage to my car. And it's amazing that we didn't get into a bigger accident than we did. All that could have been prevented if I had planned my route. My wife likes to talk about when she was younger, she used to get these AAA cards, and you would sit down and you would highlight your route. Nowadays we have navigation systems to do that, but I will tell you that these navigation systems are often incorrect, or they're glitching, or they're recalculating. It always pays to know where you're going. So many fatalities involve younger drivers. And with younger drivers, there's a whole number of ways that we can use to get to decrease accidents and improve safety. The first one is just by adherence to the graduated driver's license. When I was a kid, you got your driver's license and you were off. Nowadays, it's graduated, meaning that after you have your license, you can only drive yourself. After several months, you can then have somebody else. And there's a reason for this. I remember when I was a kid and I got my driver's license, the first thing I did was go out and pick up all my buddies, and we would go out. Oftentimes we wouldn't, we had nothing to do. We would just go driving, which is a really unsafe thing to do. But I remember by the time I got my car full of kids, I was paying no attention to the road. And I thank the Lord that I'm still here to talk about this. The more people in the car, the more dangerous it is. Several of my friends from high school were very funny, and I was focusing on the conversation and the culture in the car versus the road. So if you have a child, make sure that the child is following the rules of graduated drivers. Keep the number of passengers down. The more people in the car, the more dangerous it is. There are apps that you can use to prevent kids from driving. As I mentioned earlier, distracted driving leads to 8% of car fatalities, but it's a much higher percentage of non-fatal car accidents. You can install an app in your child's phone that prevents them from using the phone while they're driving. It's well worth the time and energy. Obviously, seatbelts. I was riding with a friend of mine recently, and I noticed that he didn't have a seatbelt on. And I said, well, how is the bell not going off? So when we get out of the car later, when we got to where we're going, he shows me he had taken one of those little clicker things from an old car and used it to just click into the seatbelt so he didn't have to wear his seatbelt. I was at a loss as to understand why anyone would want to do this, but as I mentioned, not wearing a seatbelt causes 45% of fatal accidents. So this happens, it's pervasive. Wear your seatbelt. It's the single most useful tool to prevent fatal car accidents. Follow speed limits. As I mentioned earlier, 30% of fatal car accidents have to do with speeding. Driving a car fast is not going to get you to the target that much quicker. I'm amazed. My wife and I have done a lot of traveling, especially over the last couple of 10 years, keeping up with our kids. And I really made an effort to in this time to really follow the speed limits kind of thing. And then I will be honest with you, most of that is because I got several speeding tickets, which are a disaster, because in addition to the fines that you have to pay, your insurance rates go up. You can actually jeopardize your ability to drive. So in the last 10 years, I haven't had a speeding ticket. And I've been focusing on keeping my speed down. And I'll tell you this, the times that it takes for us to get places are not that much greater. You're not saving that much. Maybe you get someplace 15 minutes earlier on a 5-hour drive. Is that worth it? It's not. Make a conscious effort to keep your speed down. The last thing would be alcohol. As I mentioned, fatal car accidents, 40% due to alcohol. I love to have a couple of drinks, which I do from time to time, but it never involves driving. It's not worth the risk. So I wanted to take a couple minutes to talk about non-motor vehicle, other motor vehicle accidents, and that's boats, motorcycles, and then 4x4s. I have a patient in my practice that I've been taking care of, and he sustained a head injury in a 4x4, was using alcohol, driving way too fast, wasn't wearing a helmet. And he got a significant head injury that's going to affect him for the rest of his life. The use of 4x4s is extremely pervasive. They're all over the place where we are here in Vermont. I'm sure they're probably common where you live as well. Let's adhere to the same rules that we use for cars. Remember now, these are motor vehicles, no different than a car. So keep the speed down, avoid alcohol, and these things we should also be wearing helmets, which can be so helpful. Boating accidents. Boating accidents almost all involve alcohol. I do understand that the allure of having a boat ride on a beautiful summer night and a couple of beers sounds great, and I've done it myself when I haven't been driving the boat. So the driver of the boat should be sober, should not be drinking. And that's very important because even a couple drinks will increase your accident rates. The last thing I wanted to say was about motorcycles. When I was working in the ER, we had a name for motorcycles. We used to call them donor cycles. And I will be honest with you, by far the large majority of patients that I've been involved with who've died and then gone on to give up their organs and things like that have been motorcycle accidents. I used to have a motorcycle myself. I loved it. But motorcycles are very dangerous. And if you have a motorcycle, you have to go back again to all these rules we talked about earlier. And motorcyclists have to be especially defensive driving because they're hard to see. So I wanted to talk about a second thing today, a form of accident, and that is drowning. Drowning is something that obviously occurs far more in the summer. Again, it's a hidden health hazard of summer because a lot of us don't think about it right away. But drowning happens to be the leading cause of deaths between children 1 to 4. And it's also the number one leading cause of children 1 to 4. And it's a top 5 cause of death for teenagers as well. Drowning is incredibly sad, incredibly tragic, incredibly preventable. So I was actually, as I researched this talk, I got onto the American Academy of Pediatrics page, and they have a wonderful toolkit for preventing drowning. This is a website that's available to all of us. So I would encourage you to go to the American Academy of Pediatrics website and look at and study the drowning toolkit. It's phenomenal. I'd like to summarize it here. The first thing would be constant supervision. None of us are letting our 1 to 4-year-olds swim by themselves, but I know, having taken care of a number of drownings and near drownings in my career, which were all incredibly sad, and I remember all of them, very well because they were so tragic. It almost always involves some type of distraction with a parent or guardian or person who is involved in watching the kids. Therefore, it's very important for groups to designate a designated water washer. And you can see the scene. You guys are at you're out in Castleton, or you're up on any beach, Emerald Beach, wherever you are. We have so many beautiful lakes and beaches here in Vermont. You're enjoying a gorgeous summer day with 4 or 5 different couples. You've got a bunch of kids. The adults start talking about this and that. Maybe they're having a drink or two, or they're eating, they're busy watching another kid. And all of a sudden you realize you haven't been watching your kid. You can't rely on just the lifeguard. Some beaches don't have lifeguards. If they do, they have 1 or 2 for a lot of people. Don't rely on the lifeguard. Watch your own child. And if you're busy in a group like this, one adult at a time, maybe 15-minute spells. I would say 15-minute spells. I've done this many times. All right, Peter, you are going out and you're watching the kids. And a lot of times that's me because I love the water. I'm always out there. So go out and get in the water with the kids. If the kids are in the water, you should be in the water. The rule is that if you have a kid 1 to 4 in the water, you should be within arm's reach. I will tell you that I've been in situations where I was tubing one time with family, and a young child got caught under a log, and I happened to be right there. And I was able to rip this kid out of this current. The child was being forced underneath the log and could not get out. Unfortunately, I was within arm's reach. These things happen very fast. You don't want to be far away. If the kids are in the water and you're on the beach, that's not good enough. You need to be out in the water with them. Pools should obviously all be fenced in. I'm not sure if that's a law in every state, but it should be. Pools should all be fenced in for each dimension of the pool should be fenced in. I remember when we moved into our house, we had a pool in our house, and the fence only went around the back and on the sides. They had saved money by not using the fence across the length of the house, which meant that any kid walking out of our house would have access to the pool. So we obviously fixed that right away. Each pool should have a fence that has a closing and latching gate. That's very important. And it should be a gate with a child-proof lock. Obviously, a kid that's going to be able to figure out how to do it should be at least 5 years old. You should keep things away from the fence that a child might use to climb up and over the fence. I'm telling you, it's a hot day in the summer, especially if there's toys in the pool. You're off with another kid. Your child can climb something and get into the pool. I remember a situation early in my career where a child had pulled one of those little plastic slides. It's I don't know what it was, a little tots or something, but it had 2-3 steps, and there was a little slide, and he pulled it right next to the fence, used it to climb over the fence to get at something. And unfortunately, in this case, his mother just happened to be looking out the window and saw him fall into the pool, and she was able to rescue him. But keep things away from the fence, like chairs, for instance, that the kids can climb the pool with. Always pick up the toys. If you've got a toy sitting in the pool area, that's a lure for that child to go in and want to take that away. Get rid of those toys. Put them away. Swim lessons. Every child should learn how to swim from an early age. Take your child to a certified swim instructor. I wanted to talk about a few others, and those are DIY accidents. The summer's here, people have got the time, the longer days, as we talked about. Let's get some stuff done. And I am telling you that my days during the summer as a physician have been filled up with a lot of DIY accidents coming in to be patched up. The first thing I've talked about would be ladder injuries. The thing I mentioned that is because I had 2 of my favorite patients die in ladder accidents. They were older gentlemen who fell, had serious injuries, and ultimately died of those injuries. And both of them were from ladders. One of them was a 96-year-old guy who I can still remember to this day because he had a lovely, lovely smile and bright, sparkling eyes. And he fell off a ladder when he was clearing out the gutters on his roof at 96. Another guy was trimming some trees and didn't fall very far. But he was a big guy. He broke some bones, ended up getting pneumonia, died. When you're using a ladder, you want to use the following safety tips. You want to make sure that you have 3 points of contact. So both feet should be on the ladder, and you should have one arm on the ladder. I was picking some pears last year in my tree, which was supposed to be a dwarf tree, and it turns out to be 30 feet tall. Anyway, I leaned out, which is, again, a no-no. You should move your ladder rather than lean. And I was overextending, which is another no-no. And I fell off the ladder. Fortunately, I had one arm on the tree, and I was able to swing and then climb down from the tree so I didn't fall. So use the 3-point of contact rule, 2 feet, one arm. Ladder should be on level ground. And you should never step on the top 2 rungs of the ladder. That's very important. I wanted to talk about electric injuries. Unfortunately, I've seen 2 heart attacks and 1 death as a result of electrocution. These were all people who were doing DIY stuff. Oh, I don't need an electrician, I'll just do it myself. And they had an electric injury, 2 for heart attacks, 1 for a death. And I'm going to say this, and some people may not agree with me, but I'm going to say it. Doing electrical work is the type of thing that you should leave to a certified professional. I don't think it's ever smart for someone to do electrical work. Hire an electrician. During the summer, during summer cleaning and all this other stuff, people use various chemicals. So there's a lot more chemical exposure during the summer. I remember a woman who was cleaning up a bathtub that hadn't been cleaned in a long time. And she tried bleach, so the bleach wasn't cutting it. So she then decided to mix bleach and ammonia. Now, if you read the labels on bleach or ammonia, they will tell you to never mix these 2 compounds. Because what happens is chloramine gas is produced, and chloramine gas is extremely toxic to the lungs. So this woman, who was in a non-ventilated space, she ended up coming into the hospital where I took care of her, and she had terrible lung injury. She ended up being okay, but she was in the hospital for 10 days. But she didn't read the labels. She mixed these 2, caused this chloramine gas, which caused a terrible injury to her lung. She had a terrible pneumonitis, which is an inflammation of the lungs. I've seen cases where these things have exploded. When you mix these 2 things together, if you're mixing them in enough quantities, it can cause an explosion. Always read the labels. And you should always be wearing respiratory masks, because sometimes things happen that you're not aware of. Respiratory masks can really help. Wear the appropriate equipment. No talk about DIY accidents would be complete without talking about weed whackers. I will be honest with you, weed whackers are good for my business. I see all kinds of weed whacker injuries. The first one would be eye injuries, because people aren't wearing eye protection. Stuff gets kicked up all the time. We see all kinds of corneal abrasions, foreign bodies in the eyes. I've seen blindness result from weed whacker injuries. Wear the goggles, and you have to wear the goggles that enclose the entire eye, because if you just got sunglasses, those pebbles can get underneath that. Hearing protection is obvious. Here's another one: long pants and long shirts. My kids all talk about how much they hate me talking about poison parsnip. But poison parsnip is something that we never had when I was growing up. It's an invasive plant that's come over from Asia recently. But when I moved to Vermont, poison parsnip had arrived, and all the locals were talking about it. I had no idea what they were talking about until I went weed whacking and got into the poison parsnip. Fortunately, I had been wearing long sleeves and long pants, and I only got a little bit on my hands. But I have seen all kinds of injuries. I never forget a guy that came in weed whacking a poison parsnip pants with shorts only. And this man was miserable. His entire body was inflamed, red, itchy, painful. When you're using a weed whacker, steel-toed boots, long sleeves, long shirts, pants, goggles, hat, and hearing protection. We're running out of time. I wanted to do a couple more things going here. Back injuries. My practice has been full from people who've come in with back pain. I mean, back pain is the third leading, in the top 3 causes of people going to the doctor. How many times do people come in, I was lifting a stove, or I was moving something. Use the appropriate technique, which is to lift with your legs, not your back. Number 2 is use equipment like dollies and carts. Number 3 is take breaks. When you're getting tired, stop. The last thing I wanted to mention was don't overextend yourself and do research. When you're digging, make sure there's nothing you're going to run into in the ground, like an electrical pipe or a gas pipe. And always plan your projects. Do research before you go. It's well worth the time. Thank you very much, and I hope you can avoid the hidden health hazards this summer. Cheers.